Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump trying to clarify his remarks on a suggested Muslim database. This as 2016 White House hopefuls lay out more details this weekend on their foreign affair policies after the horrific terror attacks in Paris. Kristen Fisher is live in Washington with more. Hi, Kristen.
Hey, Julie. So Donald Trump is now dialing back some of those statements. At first he implied that he wanted to establish a mandatory database for all Muslims in the United States. He also said that he wants to shut down certain mosques. But today, at a rally in Alabama, Trump said now he wants surveillance on those mosques. He also said he still wants a database, but not for all Muslims, only for Syrian refugees.
I want surveillance if we have to, and I don't care. Are you ready for this, folks? Are you ready? Oh, they're going to make it such a big deal. They're going to make it so big. He said something so politically incorrect. I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay?
On the Democratic side, yesterday, Hillary Clinton called Trump's remarks shocking and said they should be denounced by all presidential candidates.
It doesn't work for us to act like we're going to shut our borders and pull up the gangplank. That weakens us, and it also validates some of what these terrorists are saying.
Now, Clinton has repeatedly refrained from using the words radical Islam. But according to a new ABC News Washington Post poll, 59% of Americans say we are at war with radical Islam, and 54% oppose accepting Syrian refugees. Senator Marco Rubio agrees.
It's not because we're saying we don't want people here, but you can't allow people that you can't vet, given the fact that you know that that ISIS is deliberately using the refugee crisis as a way to infiltrate fighters into other countries.
And according to that same poll, more than half of the people surveyed said that they are not confident in the government's ability to identify possible terrorists who may be among those Syrian refugees. Julie?
Kristen Fisher, thank you.
All right, so getting back to that, critics are blasting GOP presidential frontrunner Donald Trump for those comments he made, calling for Muslims to register on a national database following the terror attacks in Paris, with members of Trump's own party and presidential rivals condemning his remarks. Listen.
I find it abhorrent that Donald Trump is suggesting we register people. That haunts back to a time that no one wants to go back to.
And there were others who criticized him as well. Tammy Bruce is a radio talk show host and Fox News contributor. Chuck Rocha is a fellow at the Center for National Policy and president of Solidarity Strategies. They both join us to weigh in on this matter. Tammy, let me begin with you, because you're basically stating, as I understand, that Donald Trump didn't mean to make these comments, and he's, as we've seen, he's dialing back from it in some way.
Well, he can't dial back on something he actually didn't say. This was a proposition put to him by a reporter, very much like when that guy at that town hall shouted at him that Obama was a Muslim and he didn't correct it. Suddenly the headlines were, Trump thinks Obama's a Muslim. So this was a proposition put in a context by a reporter. Trump ignored it and went on to something else. And so I guess the new theory is if you don't correct a reporter, then you're agreeing with what he's saying. So we have to remember this, that we've been seeing this with all the Republican candidates. At the same time, I think every candidate can expect this to happen to them, of course, if you're a Republican and a conservative. So for those who are piling on here, like for Jeb Bush and others, or Hillary Clinton, it suits their narrative as well. But I would suggest to Mr. Bush and to everyone else out there to look at this as a lesson. I think it's a lesson Mr. Trump has learned, that the media will now make up the headlines that they want. They'll ask you the leading questions, and you've got to be smart enough to know if there's a trap being laid for you and how to handle it.
Okay, you unpacked a lot there. Chuck, I'm interested to know what your response is to that.
Look, the other Republican candidates are trying to go after the king, Donald Trump, and if you're going to take him on to be the king, you got to take down the king. They want to do whatever they can to try to bring him down a notch. Right now, all the other Republican nominees are like a bunch of dogs just barking at a parade as it goes by. They don't know what to do other than to make a lot of noise. And as a Democratic strategist, I love that Donald Trump is doing so well, and I want him to be the nominee. But at the end of the day, some of this stuff is real, and some of it's just Donald Trump. He's taking on POWs. He's taking on women. He's been Teflon Don. done. There's nothing that can happen
I want to ask you about that
down.
real quickly, because you actually went through it. He took on a POW at the beginning of his campaign, which was of course, Senator John McCain, calling him basically a coward, and yet his numbers still rose in the polls. What's this underlying factor, Tammy? Are we seeing that white people in America might be moving more towards the Republican Party because they're angry and frustrated?
Look, I think that I'm no Trump supporter, by the way. I'm not a fan of his, but I'm also not a fan of everyone being lied about. I think Americans, as we've seen, and this is still the case, we are sick and tired of exactly what it is that's happening to Donald Trump because he happens to speak his mind, whether we agree with him or not. And I think that this is the pushback, that we're sick and tired of the media, the legacy media, lying about candidates, throwing their lot in with one political party, abandoning their responsibility in the country. And I think this is where Donald Trump, especially when he is lied about, will in fact be okay in the polls in the end.
So let's clarify here, because we find now that more whites are actually leaving the Democrat Party. And the Democrat Party has a problem on its hands if it can't appeal to all people. Chuck?
Look, people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. You see people leaving both parties. For the first time in American history, when you ask a voter, do they identify with Democrats or Republicans, they say they better identify with independents because they're tired of seeing the rhetoric on the far right and the far left. At the end of the day, most of Americans are in the middle. They are a little bit of both sides, but they want to see common sense solutions. And at the end of the day, they're sick and tired because if they don't have a lobbyist or have a lot of money, they feel like they don't have a voice in their government, and there's frustration.
Okay, time out.
Come over here to the independent side, dude.
Tammy,
you'd be more than comfortable over here with me.
Independent side, I understand. But the statements being made by the candidates on the campaign trail, whether it be a Donald Trump or anyone, where's the reconciliation? Where's the conciliatory response of bringing all people together, all Americans together, black, white, red, brown, yellow, indifferent? Because you can't just, for that statement to come out about Muslims, there are Muslims who grew up in the Bronx, New York, and they're saying, what are you going to do, put me on a database and ship me out of the country that I grew up in?
The interesting thing is, Mr. Trump didn't suggest that. That's the point. And that we're finding with our rejection of that kind of an idea that we all actually are in the same position.
Did he come out and apologize for even that?
Well, I don't think anyone should apologize for something that they didn't say. But what I can say is that Americans universally, we understand that this terrorism and the nature of what's happening is nonpartisan. It doesn't care what your skin color is, your complexion, your sexual orientation, or anything. This is something that all Americans understand affects all of their families. We want leadership that is going to take us into the future safely. And that also means that, we owe it to people who want to come to America to keep America strong and safe for them as well. So this is why we are the place that everyone surges to, why refugees want to come here, because we aren't living in chaos, we care about our citizenry, and we keep the nation safe.
Well said. And Chuck, anything to add to that? Because the bottom line is we are all Americans, and we do have to take a stronger stand to defend our ways of life and our freedoms, given the fact that terrorism is at our doorstep.
Just like people yearn to come to this country like my family did and the families all around my neighborhoods where I live at, words matter as well, and the world is watching us. We're supposed to be a beacon of hope across all the seas. And so what our candidates say about everybody else does matter. I know that there are words that are put in other candidates' mouth, and everybody will make a mistake in words that they use, but words do matter in this, and people are looking at us at a time right now where we should be up and beyond all the rhetoric and be that shining light.
All right, well, that was a fascinating debate we just had, wasn't it?
And we agree in some parts, absolutely.
Tammy and Chuck, thank you so much. All the
Thanks,
best
guys.
to you.
Thank you.